Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very special moment for us on Qissa today because we're talking to someone who's a trailblazer, not just in terms of women in journalism, but also women in sports journalism, especially in cricket. So welcome, Ms. Sharda Ugra. And my first question is going to be a bit of a cliche. So let me just sort of undo the cliche by going into a bit more detail. Now, women's cricket teams have been in cricket finals of the World Cup before, right? In 2005, we had
Yeah.
a cricket team go to the final, but it was really from 2017, or maybe because I came of age then, that women's cricket team really broke into public consciousness. And now we have them winning the World Cup last year. The Women's Premier League is in its successful second season. And from a time when, the earlier BCCI president, like someone like Mr. Srinivasan, was very against the idea of women's cricket teams, to now, how do you trace this journey? Because you were a very close observer. And I remember one of your older articles, you wrote about how it was very difficult for you to find a ladies' washroom in cricket stadiums back then. And now you have a women's team that's winning plaudits across the world, and it's really capturing that spirit of the game today.
Yeah, it's been a time, sort of a career. Thanks, Aman. First of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm happy to be here. It's been a crazy sort of a up and down time for women's cricket, for women's sport as such. And I think the last 25 years, I know it sounds for young people, it sounds like a really long time, but the last 25 years have just been so dramatic. The change has been so dramatic that I don't think people can comprehend. Younger people can comprehend what it was like before. If you are 25 years old, you've grown up seeing female athletes come through, stars come through, and so on.
Yeah,
And I'm referring to sort of a time before that was even in anybody's mind. I think the women's cricket scenario, the change that has come, has been the result of just like Jemima, I
yeah,
mustn't get her name wrong. Like Jemima Rodriguez says that for all those who didn't stop playing even when it was very difficult, it's just those women who kept going, kept going, kept going. Even though there is almost a lost generation of player who came through between 2006 when the women's game merged with the BCCI and 2014, that whole generation is gone. But there was enough in there for the game to keep going. And 2017 was this big explosion of public interest. And now we'll just see women's cricket is so much part of conversation. You'll see it in pop cultural references, all the ads that you see these days as women playing
yeah,
cricket in them, whether it's AI or paints or whatever it is, So
yeah.
they've become central to to sort of female sport. Women's cricketers were not the first female athletes, Indian female athletes you thought of in these last, let's say, uh, 15 of the last 25 years, in any case, for
Yeah.
sure.
And I mean, there's also a great upside to the growth of Indian women's cricket, but you've also written about the darker sides of it. You've
Yes.
written, for example, in 2023, you wrote about the sexual harassment crisis in Indian women's cricket, and how that has not subsided. You've also written about the Johari investigation, which was a committee that was opened in order to look into these excesses. But also, you wrote about how I remember in 2015, you wrote about in Crickbus, I guess, about the HPCA Academy in Dharmshala, and how
I
that is
never
really
worked for
like,
Crickbuzz. I always work
uh,
for Cricinfo. Yeah,
oh yeah, I'm sorry, my bad.
Cricinfo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Crick Info. So you wrote about that the HPCA Academy being this really great example of how sports should be done. So how do you see those issues, right? The darker sides of women's cricket sort of being handled now.
I think there were pockets where women's cricket is looked at in a way, as in and the HPCA Academy, the Himachal Pradesh Cricket Association Academy, certainly was one of those. Andhra Pradesh had a very strong. Andhra had a very strong female cricket presence, and how they pushed the sport, and the sport was promoted. But in other places where it became part of, that you had to have women's sport also featured in your program, whether it was because of the Lodha committee recommendations or because there were women who wanted to play. There is a big, in badly run state associations, you will hear of these stories much more. You will hear it with men as well as with young men, young women, and young men. It's just a whole lack of governance thing that we'll see. And that they're allowed to have these kind of powers. So I remember the Uttarakhand story was so sad, when I had gone and met the people that were involved in fighting this fight. And
yeah,
I listened to the conversations of a coach speaking to a female player, and it made my skin crawl. And to know that there is no structure in BCCI's entire scheme of things that can prevent this. That is what is sadder. That there seems to be no move made. What is the thing that Indian cricket boasts about the most? The money that it makes,
yeah.
and you're saying that that's great, but how secure, how safe is your sport for young women coming in, say not from the main urban centers, but maybe tier 2 towns, coming in elsewhere, um, where women's sport is not seen as a thing that you're interested in, where there are no role models for the girls to follow, and they're just trying to find their way. How do they handle these things? There is also a sort of parallel culture that's running, that's below and behind the headlines. But because there is nothing to protect these women from these kind of predators and from these kind of people that are trying to make cricket coaching a transactional business, you give me this and I'll get you picked on the team, and it's
Hmm.
not just money. So that is the sadness of it, that the BCCI is not able to look beyond its whole, election हो गया, ये जीते हमने, ये deal हो गई, हमने इतने पैसे कमाए. Is it okay if I lapse into Hindi from time to time?
It's perfectly fine. You can talk in Kannada as well. We don't mind.
No, my Kannada is very bad. Very bad. My
Yeah,
friends tell me, stop. Do not even attempt speaking in Kannada anymore. My friends who speak Kannada fluently. No, they actually don't. They're very, very encouraging. So, that there is nothing to protect these kind of athletes that's there. So, all the money that's going into Indian cricket, there's great work that gets done, right? Everyone says you hate BCCI. I don't hate BCCI. I don't have to be in absolute adoration and in a long-term relationship with them, right? I'm
yeah,
able to look at them neutrally as an institution and an organization and say that these are the things that work. They're able to put out this massive number of matches, which no other sports federation in the country does for young athletes. The
yeah,
BCCI does that. They have an office in Mumbai that works towards making sure they've set up this substructure of having umpires, referees, match officials, scorers, the people that are doing data, all that. They've got that great substructure going. But it's these other things that they need to be genuinely investing in, because the women's game is now going to go into a state of absolute, I don't know, exponential growth, explosion, call it what you will.
yeah.
And to not have those kind of structures, that, I mean, there is no women's committee in the BCCI,
Hmm.
or if there is a women's committee and I cannot find it on their website, there are no women on it for sure. You know, and so they treat it as it's like a financial commodity that just more money needs to be made of it. That seems to be the way, rather than saying, let us become a governance model that other sports organizations can follow. Other than making this money, and it's the stories of these young women that you hear about, the stories that I wrote about in that Caravan article about the coach who did not let the girl play because she wouldn't come up to his room when he called her. You can't be allowing that to happen in this day and age.
Yeah,
This is not the time where it was could be swept under the carpet. It's horrible. What are you doing to a whole bunch of young women who want to play? They're going to say, this is what I have to do to get through in this game. And everybody doesn't young women, girls, boys of multiple, all kinds of talents play the game. Everybody doesn't become an international star, but everyone can have a completely sterling domestic cricket career.
yeah,
One, they can be those many people that get a good livelihood from the game. They
yeah,
have to be protected as well. They have to be
yeah.
looked after as well.
And cricket is a very equitable sport, right? It's seen as the most equitable avenue for at least fame in India that I can think of. But there was a time when you had the quota system, right, where Mumbai and Karnataka players would especially dominate a team. But now it's become a lot more representative of India as a whole. Especially, we had a captain from Jharkhand, which may not have been imaginable a few years ago. But is there still some form of regional bias, or is there favoritism by the coach or captain with respect to selection? Because, for example, right when we lost in New Zealand in the Test series, there was a bit of a controversy that there were too many part-time bowlers that were chosen for the game. So, how does bias work in this sort of
No,
objective, result-oriented sport?
I mean, Aman, these are sort of two questions. The New
Yeah,
Zealand example is completely separate, I think, from what you're saying. And I
yeah,
don't think the quota system that you're referring to was is like a formal system that there was. I think that definitely having those five selectors from five zones tended to be that you had to try and get in someone from your zone. The reason why Mumbai and Karnataka had a lot of players play for India was that they were high performing players because they came from more robust structures than were elsewhere there. That's why
Yeah,
they all came through. Whether it was, and there's always, I'm from Mumbai, so I will always say, no, no, the Mumbai players were just good players, and that's why they played. And all the Delhi and the Bangalore people say, oh, rubbish, so and so and so and so were just crushed and held to the side and so on. And with the advent of satellite television, you are able to take the game outside these, popular centers
pockets.
that
Yeah,
there. These big urban centers, Chennai, Madras, Calcutta, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, or the old princely states, Baroda and so on. And then you had Chandigarh coming through, and you started getting these players. So I know Dhoni's example is the fact that someone from a small town, which in India is easily 1 million people without any problem. Someone from a non traditional cricketing center became a captain. And before Dhoni, there's a whole generation of those players that have started coming through. So you've got Zahir Khan, you've got Harbhajan Singh, you've
yeah,
got SS Das, you've got Harvinder Singh, you've got MSK Prasad, you've got Mohammad Kaif. You're all these guys coming out of what are not your main traditional centers. That was the fallout. That was the result of satellite television reaching. And then
right.
with 2008, it was the advent of the IPL. And so
Hmm.
therefore now it's you've gone to places. You hear stories of so many players from UP rushing off to play in Calcutta, where they'll get a better chance than they will get in UP, for example.
Yeah,
In UP cricket. So you've got these parallel things that are there. Bias, I think, when it comes to it, it's very difficult. I think after a particular point, now everyone's asking the question for which I have yet to find an answer: is why isn't Sarfraz Khan getting to play? Or what's the story about Mohammad Shami? We're not hearing these stories.
yeah.
Padikkal and all the players who do well in. Am I getting the name Padikkal right or wrong? So there's
That's
yeah.
the
So
one that I'm not sure
and
what his name
there,
is.
there was Priyank Panchal who was from Gujarat, a tremendous
Hmm.
first class record. Never got a chance to play for India. So you will hear these stories. It's not like they won't go away. And there are because of multi-format cricket and because of the way. So the New Zealand story is a separate pattern that you are having now. So that's the story of bias that you were talking about. That it's difficult for you to uh, maybe push or for a selector to push or promote a player who will not be able to stand his ground on the international stage, in
Yeah,
whichever format that he plays. It's hard for you beyond, say, one tour or two tours to be pushing for that person. I could be wrong. Someone will list 15 names in front of me. I could be wrong. But I'm just giving you a general sort of a perspective.
yeah,
We do know that in Delhi, for example, this I have to say, DDCA, the Great Delhi and District Cricket Association, Delhi and District Cricket Association has probables listed to the number of 40 or 50 because they'll have one set of problems, which is absolutely the problem is that they need to play. Some great cricketers have come out of Delhi. And then you'll have the Sifarshis that are the other set.
right.
That has not gone away in Delhi. That's still there very much. But you'll find this happening in all places where there is sort of shabby governance. And definitely DDCA is top to bottom. I mean, it just seems to be anyone that has 60 probables playing or 50 probables, some nonsense number, yeah, are being called for camp, and they're fighting with each other as to who gets into the dressing room and who can. Some of these crazy stories that you hear. That's just bad management of. You haven't set the rules down clearly, no matter who's in charge.
Very
The story
quintessentially
for New
Delhi though.
Zealand is, pardon, say that again.
Very quintessentially Delhi though.
Yeah, I love Delhi. I lived there for 14 years. I quite liked its madness, but not this, not this at all. But and the New Zealand stuff is completely separate because now you're seeing a first generation of player come through to play international
Yeah,
cricket that have not played, that are IPL, post IPL players. So Rohit and Virat have all come through first class cricket in the way that's how they rose to prominence and success through the whole old systems that they were. They are pre IPL
yeah,
guys that have come through. But now you're seeing a generation that has come, which is completely a post IPL generation, a generation where the kind of spinners that they had to play, India's sort of push towards creating fast bowling tracks have meant that the number of your quality spinners coming through has dropped. Every team used to have a really top class, high class domestic spinner as well, which is where
yeah,
all our great batters against high quality spin. That's where they grew up. That's where they sort of learned their trade. You don't have that anymore. So that's why you're getting these kind of results that you are getting, and you're getting defeated by spin from New Zealand, for example.
Yeah. And speaking about international cricket, right? Like India had this great, like incredible journey where it was like this very minor player in the ICC, and it's not like the top dog. I think the big change is obviously satellite television, the amount of money we bring in, the general explosion of craze in cricket. But say take the Pawar Dalmia era, which was where like this real domination of the ICC started, to now the Jay Shah era, and like where it was supposedly the big three in the beginning, right? Like it's India, England, and Australia, but now it's just the big one. It's just us, and it's just the BCCI, which is like this very opaque body where no one knows what exactly is going on and how the power structures work. Even though there was the Lodha committee, there was also the Mudgul committee that was also there. You've written about the Mudgul committee and its reforms. So how what changes have happened in the structure of the BCCI from then to now?
I think the BCCI has gone back to being the kind of body that it was without pre-Lodha, kind of, that the power is centered in the hands of very few, which will probably be in the old day, it was president, secretary, treasurer. You've gone
Yeah,
back to that. And the Lodha committee wanted an executive, they've set up an executive board, which is even fewer people than if you had a working committee of the board, which had a larger number that was there, and there were discussions and there were conversations. I'm not saying that the previous administration was absolutely lily white and and free of all full of virtue top to toe. But what seemed to have been that generation's people forget, I think, very easily. Number one is that when Jagmohan Dalmia became the ICC chairman in 1997, he was looked down upon by all the English and the Australians, treated with somewhat of contempt, and then he could out contempt them. And he said, I want an
right.
office, or you come to my hotel room and meet me. Kind, he was like a really, really tough. I mean, he was completely a tough guy. He was the guy who, along with Ehsan Mani of Pakistan, they knew that the ICC had no money. So they
Yeah,
they took the World Cup, which was given to random sponsors, and they took ownership of that World Cup. This is our World Cup. We will sell rights for it, and we will get money from it. And they were able to change the profile of the ICC in that way by making it an organization who owned their own World Cup. That's why these days it's called the ICC Cricket World Cup. It was
yeah,
called the Prudential World Cup when India won it. It was called the Reliance Cup when Australia won it. It was called, I think, there was which was the 1996, the one that we held at home. It couldn't have been called Benson and Willis. It's called the Wills World Cup
yeah,
in 96. So, and in 99 was when it was called the ICC World Cup for the first time. Yeah, and people forget that. And that's an Indian administrator who did it.
yeah,
Um, so that kind of vision for the game has begun, including a lot of people. It came like I did a podcast with Ahmed Rakni recently, and he said no cricket administrator from England or Australia has had a global view of the game like administrators from the subcontinent have had. And
mm,
whatever we may hold of them, what's happened in this current sort of scenario and current this thing of events is that the BCCI's influence, Big Three is very much a part of it, right? Why are the Big
right.
Three there? Because the Big Three know that because of the revenue distribution, England and Australia is not going to raise their hand up and object to what you're doing in any meeting, no matter how right or wrong it. I mean,
Yeah,
the case of Bangladesh is the most obvious.
yeah,
So that's what we're seeing is that they're just protecting their little, it's not the right word to use it. It's like a cabal, but I've said it, and now I'll say it's not the right word to say it, but I've said it. So it's like this cabal of these big three countries that are there. So it's like you've kind of built your defenses and said there's us, and these are our sidekicks slash henchmen or whatever. I'm the big don, and then these are the other guys next to me. So that's where we are. No matter how much they talk a very good game about global cricket and so on, I don't know whether their interest is in uh, whether the ICC has detached itself from its Indian focus, India slash Indian focus of Indian interests, and become
yeah,
about the global game. I need to see proof that it has actually happened, and then I
right.
will absolutely believe it and say salam.
Yeah. I mean, the big three domination was also a big factor in like, suffocating other historically strong teams like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and West Indies. But in this T20 World Cup, you've had, associate teams, right? Like Nepal or USA that have been very competitive. I mean, Afghanistan almost beat South Africa, Zimbabwe beat Australia. So do you think the T20 format also has potential to like level this playing field? And can we tap into that to expand the reach of the game and maybe make sure that the ICCI also, by force of the market, becomes a more equitable body?
It's tough to make the market an equitable body if your governing body is not putting systems into place that are helping the weaker nations.
Yeah,
Uh, what you will get told is that, oh, India goes there and travels all the time. That's what you'll get told. Yeah, which is fine. But why doesn't England do it or Australia do it? So you need to put systems into place to help them all the time. Like Kenya, for example, Kenya beat the West Indies in 1996. Kenya is ranked something like 31 or something in the ICC rank. Example, Kenya. So Kenya beat the West Indies in 1996 in the World Cup. That was a big upset result.
yeah,
Kenya currently in the T20 rankings, they're ranked 33. They're ranked 33 behind Saudi Arabia, Bermuda, Spain, Bahrain, Qatar and Italy. Now, why is that been allowed to happen? Someone say, oh, there's a problem in Kenyan cricket. Yeah, but it's between 96 and now. They're
yeah.
referring to a lot of time. You
Yeah,
should,
you
you should,
even recently, even you had an article in HT about Kenya's interest in cricket. I remember now. Yeah,
Uganda, that was not Kenya. That's Uganda.
Uganda. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, my
T20.
bad.
Yeah. No, you
Yeah,
get it right.
T20. Yes. Yeah.
It was Uganda. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, when we talk about the BCCI's money power, it's the IPL, right?
Yeah.
Inevitably, it boils
Yeah.
down to that. And your articles about the IPL over the years are very reflective of the view that people had of the IPL initially, right? Because the earliest article I would find is, you talk about reasons why you enjoy the IPL, like it's a guilty pleasure. And in 2011, you wrote about the IPL is dead, long live the IPL. And most recently, you wrote that the IPLs are like the Oscars. So, I
Hmm.
mean, this is such a major part of the game. It's transformed world cricket, if I were to be very honest about it. And it's continually been controversial. The money poured into it, the team owners. It's got that very colorful founder in a way, in the form of Lalit Modi. So it's obviously going to be tanned with that sort of reputation. So, since you were there and you were probably upfront when you saw the how the whole league was structured and formed and all the teams were brought in, like, could you just give us brief history of how it came to be? Because, for example, I've always had my suspicions that, and I think Lalit Modi himself admitted this once, that he sort of bent the rules in a way because he wanted Shah Rukh Khan to have a team in the IPL, since he wanted a big movie star associated with the league, so that women and children could watch the games. So, how much of that sort of bending and twisting and
Mean,
happened?
the IPL has been a massive, like a changing, a force for change and revolution almost in the international game, and it's literally going to rewrite the rules of the game as we go along. When it came
Yeah,
out first, my main which according to me now seems extremely silly because it was just it was just created quickly, and they kept changing the rules as they went. Like they didn't have a proper format for what rules were rules. They kept changing the rules as they went along. This was not allowed, that was not allowed, and this was changed. I kept thinking, are they serious or are they not? But it was so successful and it was so popular. It's not my most favorite format or event of cricket, but I watch it almost like an anthropologist looking at the tribe of these people going mad. So I have to watch it because as a journalist, you have to follow what's going on. You have to keep track.
yeah,
It's not that I love it. I'll watch the final maybe. I've been to a couple of games. I was there for that first game when McCullum had played that insane innings.
yeah,
And also for the final in DY Patil when Shane Warne and Rajasthan Royals won their only title so far.
yeah.
And so it was literally created on the run, and it because it was so successful and it made so much money. What I think what we have missed out on when you're watching this is to seeing the level of seriousness and professionalism with which the owners took, as in the people that actually run the teams, the actual
Yeah,
executive office of those teams, as to how they run it. Now it's become a big business proposition. There are several IPL international teams playing under the Indian companies that run the most prominent IPL franchises. And then you think of American sport, in which it's the franchises that run the league. They own the league
yeah,
and they run the league, and not there is no cricket board that runs the league
yeah,
for the franchises. And you can see that the creation of the Major League Cricket in America has divorced itself from a cricket board running it, unlike
yeah,
in the other countries. And so that's interesting to see how they've put in a certain level of professionalism, which, say, for example, the BCCI, it's not their main thing, but it's just the money comes in. They're not going to detach themselves from the IPL at all. It's a
Yeah.
subcommittee or whatever it is of the BCCI. It's a domestic tournament. It's still theirs. So you've seen this thing of ownership and power, this tussle going on, and franchises are extremely frustrated that they operate through the BCCI's many layers of opaqueness. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to talk about the layers of opaqueness in the BCCI, we obviously have to talk about the controversy. I think first the controversy about Pakistani players in 2010, right? Because they were not banned. They were allowed to participate in the auction, but they were not allowed to be acquired. And I think 15 years later, it's gotten even worse with Mustafizur Rahman because he was acquired, and a sudden political campaign that comes out of nowhere just forces the team to detach the player away from it. Interestingly, both times it was one team that really was stuck in the eye of the storm, which was
yeah,
KKR.
yeah,
So, and beyond that, there's also certain politicization of the sport, right? You've written about this in the
yeah.
2023 World Cup very prominently. The decision of using certain venues for the matches, but earlier also, right? I mean, when Srinivasan and Lalit Modi were the guys calling the shots, there must have been an element of politicization. So how has it changed so much? And not to forget, our current Prime Minister himself comes from the Gujarat Cricket Association, which is a real surprise to because we don't know much about his early political life. But the big standout is he was the president of the Gujarat Cricket Association. So what's the link between politics and cricket in India right now?
There's always been a link between politics and cricket, and people in cricket will tell you we've always needed politicians because we wanted land to buy something cheap and get clearances and security and all the rest of it. There's always been the major difference, as I put it in my article in the Caravan in 2023, was that this is the first time that it's a single political ideology, a single political party that has taken and its ideology that has taken control of Indian cricket. And when that piece appeared, the headline was the BJP's control of cricket in India, which is, of course, the BCCI. And I thought that the headline
Yeah,
was a bit, I thought it was a very good headline, very good. But I thought it was a little bit too much. I thought it was a little bit of a push because my
yeah,
piece was not exactly proving that completely, whatever it was, whatever else was there in it. And then the World Cup happened in 2023, and every step that was taken with reference to how the crowds in Ahmedabad turned up, how they behaved with the Pakistani players, how the visas were denied to people, all those things just were playing out in the sort of textbook of how the government was othering, the Muslims, how the government was demonizing Pakistan. It was all that happening in that little compressed time frame that the World Cup was played. And that has not been seen before in Indian cricket. It's not been that evident. There's always been pushback against political influence on cricketing decisions, as in
hmm,
influence. I mean, there has been an acceptance that when the government says we cannot travel to another country, we will not travel. That's always been there. So I
yeah,
always tell the story of Amrit Mathur's book, in which he talks about the fact that before the 2003 2000 before the 2004 tour to Pakistan, Jagmohan Dalmia received a call from someone very senior in the government who wanted him to cancel the tour. And Jagmohan Dalmia said, I'm the president of the BCCI. I want the tour to go ahead. And you are the government of India. If you don't want the tour to go ahead, you stop the tour. And that's a simple answer. But of course, the tour did not stop. It went on. So you won't get that kind of, sort of response from anyone in the BCCI. For who, for example, I keep asking this like I'm some clown. Who, for example, said the Indian players should not shake hands with the Pakistani cricket team during
yeah.
the Asia Cup? I want to know who that person is. Where did that order come from? We still don't know. So this kind of thing, that there was cricket was able to cricket, and its administrators, even if they were politicians, were able to push back against a political directive that was coming. That doesn't happen anymore. That's just done for. It's just gone. So, and
Right.
as for Mr. Modi's I think he became the president. I could be wrong. I'll need to check those dates again. He became the chief minister of Gujarat, and he took over the presidentship. He was the president of the Gujarat Cricket Association. It just became like something that people do, and then it followed through that when he was voted the when he went into public office. I need to check those things. Should we go through that again, or I want to check what
I'll
the
just pause for a second.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, with reference to what you're saying with the Prime Minister being involved with Gujarat Cricket Association, he was elected president of Gujarat Cricket Association when he was the chief minister, right? This was in
Right.
2009. And Amit Shah was his vice president. And
Yeah.
that was the same time that Jay Shah, he was appointed on the executive board of the Central Board of Cricket Ahmedabad, which is like part of the Gujarat Cricket Association. And
Right.
then once Mr. Modi became the prime minister, Amit Shah remained in the post as he took over as the president of the GCA.
Yeah.
And when when he stepped when I think when he was made home minister or when he um in yeah. So later, when he stepped down from the post, when Amit Shah stepped down from the post of the Gujarat Cricket Association president, for a long time that post was vacant, and then it was taken over again. So it's not a cricketing association as such; it's their connection with the government of the day that
Yeah.
brought them onto these two positions. I
Right.
mean, these two people onto those positions. Yeah.
I mean, I think it shows the preeminence of the sport that like the two major political figures are, from Gujarat cricket. But I think this will be a last question for like our first part. So, there are a lot of teams, right, that have declined, and I've referred to this earlier about the big three. You had West Indies, Pakistan, and one of my friends made this good point that apart from India, it seems all of South Asia, cricket as a sport itself has dwindled in interest. I'm not sure if it's a cause of the instability in the governments around us or what. Except maybe Afghanistan, which is doing a really brave job and sort of like keeping that sports culture going. And even Bangladesh, to an extent, they got a really raucous crowd that always follows them. But do you think somewhere that there's a decline? There's going to be a decline in like sport interest in South Asia?
In cricket, I doubt it because so now you've got Nepal that's come into the picture. So there are
Yeah.
six cricketing countries, six major South Asian cricketing countries, along with the us, the big four, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. You now have Nepal and you have Afghanistan, and
Yeah.
that's a population of almost 2 billion people, a quarter of the world's population. I don't think the sport is going to decline in any way. I think it's going to grow. But what their international success will be, we don't know. So, there is Himal magazine, which is the South Asian publication that looks at South Asia as not as two, South Asia is not two words, it's one word, South Asia. We are South Asians, that's what we
Right.
are. And it's done a piece on a very interesting piece, which I think you should see if you can find about what the Nepal's cricket league, what it's going to do about the sport as such. Will it have positive consequences of sport in Nepal as such? So it's not that the sport is declining in some parts of South Asia. There may be relatively less interest, or if another sports come through in which their athletes do
Right.
better, of course there'll be more interest. But if it's not, then you'll definitely get a sort of a dip, or you'll get an increase, because this is the one sport that South Asians are able to do well at an international level. And they
Yeah.
have sort of a history of so many years. I know that football was very popular in Bangladesh, and cricket has taken over. Maybe there'll be a little bit of a jostle between cricket and football, but it'll be very hard to say for it to dial back. I mean, it's like an it's become old now. You're talking, say, these countries have been playing cricket for close to 100 years now. So you're talking about
Yeah.
70, 80 years. You look at India, Pakistan, that's what the history is. Sri Lanka's history is that old. So it's not something that will just go away. It'll not dwindle, because you see it everywhere. There are stars coming through, and it's around there. You see it everywhere.